Hello, and thank you for joining us for That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. One of those people is me. I am Michelle Kane with Voice Matters, and here as ever with my wonderful co host, Karen Swim of Solo PR Pro. How are you, Karen?
I'm doing well, Michelle. Thank you. How are you?
I am just rolling along.
Yeah.
It's, spring is finally here. So, you
It's
know,
really is
well,
it?
okay, we won't tell.
Because
Maybe
I
by the
stepped
time
outside this morning to with my
more
sweet
snow.
baby, and there was crunching under my feet from the ice that had rained down upon us.
Yeah, it's been a little snowy around here.
Yeah, it actually held. I mean, I'm gonna say that, when frozen ice falls out of the sky, it qualifies as hell.
Yeah, it's been a little frigid.
Winter weather game, but I'm pretty sure they called that all.
Winter's having a little trouble letting go this year,
Okay.
and, although, I don't know, yeah, we've had worse snowfalls, but yeah, once we had a taste of, 50, 60 degrees, it's like, "Excuse me, 29? I don't think
Oh,
so, because 'cause I'm
I
all
can go
about."
for 29. We've been 18, 17, 16.
No, no, thank you. No, no,
And
we're all
and
about.
it feels like temperature was, like, as low as 9 degrees on Saturday, so yeah, times.
Yeah, okay, spring better amp up its game. Well, maybe we can help usher it in, because today we're gonna, you kind of get that seasonal urge to purge around this time of
Yeah.
year.
Yes,
And, so being the good solo PR pros that we are, we're gonna talk today about financial spring cleaning.
I love
Ew.
it.
Although, I think,
No,
honestly.
I love this topic, I really do, because it's not one that we address in any great detail a lot,
No, no.
and around this time of year, I know that we are all like, "Taxes,
Ugh.
taxes," but the spring is a good time to do some reviews and to tighten up some processes, and I really am excited about today's topic.
Yeah, yeah. I sometimes I envy accountants. I don't envy the hours that they're putting in these days, but, they're just numbers. There's no emotion in them. You don't have to
Yeah,
get be creative or,
yeah.
come up with things. It's like it's just numbers. That's just all they are. But yeah, and like you said, taxes. I mean, by the time I get ready for everything, I mean, not that it could be worse. It can always be worse, but still, by the time you get everything ready for your account and you're thinking, "Ugh, I do not want to look at any of this anytime soon." However, it is the best time to do so because you'll soon learn what you owe, whether you owe, how your quarterly payments are going to change. So we're just going to bop through some good best practices, give you some inspiration on things like record keeping. How are you invoicing customers in the most efficient way? Are you checking your bank accounts? Are you keeping your eye on things because goodness knows phishing and scammers, that's all happening. And evaluating some of these things that maybe, "Ugh, why do I have a subscription to this? I didn't even know I had a subscription to that." And and all that sort of good business. And I think it's hard for us sometimes as solos, we think, "Oh, I'm just a company of one. Why would I create a budget?" Well, because you're a business. And I'm talking to myself here too. So,
Yeah. And
oh,
so yeah, and I think that there are things that that we understand and that we do kind of intuitively.
yes.
So, we know the invoice clients. However, spring is a great time to review your invoices and
Yeah.
to make sure that you've done a reconciliation if you haven't done that
Yeah.
in a while, because um,
Yes.
sometimes you can forget to send an invoice. Sometimes maybe if you use a system that does sets up your retainer invoices for you, but you have it not send it automatically, you have it in draft mode, something can slip through the cracks. So you want to make
Right.
sure that you are up to date on all your payments. So do a reconciliation. Make sure, first of all, that you billed everyone that you're supposed to bill, that you've added any expenses that are supposed to be expensed back to your clients, because
Right.
again, that's another thing. Sometimes a bill comes in after you paid it, it came in after, and you forgot to attach it. So
Right.
doing that mini little audit of making sure that you build everything you're supposed to bill and that you've gotten all of your money. And if you do have anything that's outstanding, that you at least have a handle on that. Maybe it's still within that window. That's okay. But, just doing that audit shouldn't take very long, just to look at that. And then, it's also a good time to see if, there are any changes that you need to make to the way that you invoice. Is there something that you can improve upon?
Right.
Um, about once a quarter, I like to pull up each individual client's payment history to look at how quickly they pay.
Mm,
Um, I know it just helps me to understand because every client has a pattern. Some, pay within 2 days, some take 18 days. And so
mhm,
that's kind of a good thing to look at too to see how fast your clients pay.
right.
And what information can you draw from that? What's causing the faster payments to come in? Is that something that you can duplicate across your business?
Right, right. Yeah, and it just kind of helps you know your cash flow. So yeah, so let's break it out. A lot of times it feels overwhelming. So, we thought today we'd go through and break out, what should you do monthly? What should you do quarterly? So, like you said, monthly, not only are you getting paid, but you want to make sure you're paying your vendors, or at least I love this. I am the queen of online paying. Like, why should I write a check and mail it?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you can either fully automate it or set it and forget it, but you also wanna make sure that that you are being billed fairly and that you aren't incurring any charges that maybe are incorrect. Um, especially if some of your vendors like to offer discounts, don't lose those.
That's a really good point. We can sometimes miss those.
Mhm.
And, you don't wanna do that because in addition to maybe paying other contractors, you do pay vendors. And so if there is an opportunity to get some savings by the way you pay. And so one of the easy examples to think about is if you sometimes you may start a subscription and you started it monthly because you weren't sure if you were going to have use of it. But now if you've been paying and you are using it, it's become a critical part of your toolbox
Right,
and you're, you know, 4 or 5 months into it, oftentimes you can save money by switching to an annual subscription. And you can do that in the middle of, your monthly. It's okay. They just prorate it and then you would
right.
pay for those months and it's a savings. And so, this is a good time quarterly to look to see if there are any of those savings that you can take advantage of.
Right, right, and I always like to make myself at least a month out from that annual renewal, a little note on my Google Calendar,
Yes.
just so I'm not surprised then because I've learned that you can forget things. Like, "Wait, what
Yeah.
was that? What was that chunky deduction? Oh, right."
Yeah.
So
That's a stellar tip. I put it on
yeah,
my calendar too. So
yeah,
I flat out all of my payments on a calendar with the
yeah, me
amount
too.
right in the top
Yep,
line so that it pops up
yep,
and then I can look out and that helps you to really
yeah.
keep a handle on your budget and the variances from month to month.
Yeah, and it's especially important, if you pay your auto insurance quarterly, or I know around here our water and sewer, it's not a business expense, but that gets billed
Yeah.
quarterly and,
Yeah.
things like that. So you don't forget them and even your business insurance. So, and it makes sense then, trying to create a budget around all of this, right? Because we know that you know what's coming and it may be in your head, but sometimes it's good to get it out of your head.
Yeah.
Even if it's a spreadsheet, you don't have to develop any grand, thing in QuickBooks or Quicken or have FreshBooks, but which you certainly can do, especially if you want to run a P&L and just see how you're doing year over year. But if it's just,
I am a huge fan of profit and loss statements.
yeah,
Huge fan. And if, here's the thing, people, this can sound scary to a lot of solos. And sometimes when you say that, they're like, oh God, I'm not doing that. If you use any type of accounting software, FreshBooks, QuickBooks, and most of us use something, you can have your system run that for you
yeah,
as long as you're tracking things accordingly. And
right,
so and if you need to do this by using some of your system, maybe you're not capturing all of your expenses through your accounting software, then you could still do it manually pretty easily. And
mhm,
here's why it's important. You need to know the profitability of your business. And I will also add that it's a good time to look at things that are missed on the numerical P&L, such as this is a great time to look at your tracking of how you're spending your time. Do you
Mm,
have a client that is eating up way more budget than they're paying you? So an overall business P&L, but I also think that at least quarterly, or twice a year, look at
mhm,
individual P&Ls for your clients because you can streamline things. If you have a client that is wanting to do extra meetings or lots of extra reports, you need to get a handle on that because everything that you do
yeah,
has a return on what you're getting in. And so you think that you're getting this big fat budget, but then when you look at the amount of time that you're taking to deliver and deliver on non-critical things, like in my mind, lots of extra reports is not really delivering value to the client.
mhm,
That's not really why they hired you to be administrative. And
right,
so conversation about what are the metrics that are really important, and I like to do that right from the start. How are
right,
we going to track success? What does that mean to you? And then track the metrics that matter and report on those, period.
right,
If a client is starting to add all these extra things in, or if you say, hey, we're going to meet once a month, and suddenly you find that you're having 5 meetings a month, that's an issue. And that
yeah,
is going to detract from the profitability of that account.
right, right, absolutely, absolutely. Another thing to consider quarterly and, especially as you plan this out month to month, it's not as though if it's a quarterly payment, you're going to just bam, pay it out of perhaps that month's income. This is why it's good to check things monthly and quarterly because you're going to have your quarterly estimated tax payments.
Yeah.
So, things like that, if you need to, stash some funds away, maybe open a savings account where you can stash things, stash your funds so it's out of your regular spending stream, do that. Um, I won't, I'll reveal back in the day when I used to actually work out of a checkbook for just me, my little self. I used to use one of these nerd pens. You can't see this on the podcast, but my beautiful nerd pen. And when I got my paycheck, I would add it in green, and then I would hold my little budgetary items in red.
I Listen, technology is not the answer to everything. And for some of you who may be using a notebook, more power to you.
Yeah,
Whatever
there's no shame
works,
in that.
consistent
Yeah,
in doing this,
yeah,
but in addition to that, I'm glad that you mentioned the taxes because especially at this time of year, this is a great time to look at ways to optimize your tax savings.
yes.
Every year you may be surprised, like something that your accountant catches that you haven't been tracking well.
Mhm.
Um, Random example, I can remember my accountant asking me about a couple of meal deliveries for lunch that I had, and I never thought about it being part of business, but I was at work in my office and it
Yeah,
was a business meal. So you can miss little things like that because you don't think about it. So
right,
when your
right.
taxes are fresh on your mind and your accountant's delivered it and your tax person has delivered it, it's a good time to take a look. Are there things that I could have done better? Could I have made more contributions to my retirement account? Um, am I getting all the savings that I should be? Am I deducting things? Are there business expenses that are not being appropriately captured? Or am I
Right,
paying for things personally that really could be paid for by the business? I mean, it's just,
right.
and it may be worth having a second meeting, just like an hour consultation with either a financial advisor or
Yeah,
your financial person, if you have
yeah.
one, to say, let's look at this. Is there any area that I'm missing? What can I be doing so that
Mhm.
you're prepared for the next year? It's
Yeah,
also a good time to look at how you cannot scramble in March to pull everything together. So, is there a way that you can improve your system? Are there things that you can be doing every day, every week, so that when tax time comes, you've got everything neat and tidy and buttoned up, and you're not like, I spent the whole weekend gathering tax information.
were you in my office earlier this month, Karen? I said that to myself many times this year, Michelle, a lot of these numbers are accessible before now. You could pull it together. You know that, right? Yeah, 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 I know. Shh, don't talk to me. But, among those too is your mileage. There are apps that you can use
Mm,
that
yeah.
track your mileage, and then all you have to do is
Mm,
swipe to categorize them as personal, business, medical, and, if you don't have an accountant, look, you don't have to hire a $10,000 a year accounting firm to both do your taxes and just be your advisor. It is invaluable to have someone who understands your business, your type of business, because they know everything that you do not know.
yeah.
And you may be either leaving a lot of money on the table or sending way too much money in your tax payment. I mean, I'm all about paying your taxes, but fair is fair. Um, and there's a lot that they do know that we don't know.
And I also, uh, Chip makes so many great points. So I do encourage
Hey,
you
Chip.
to go back and look at the chat. But there are two things that he just said. One is that go ahead and put the estimated taxes due dates on your calendar for the entire year because they're
Yes.
not really quarterly. So those dates are widely available on the RS site. You can, Google, estimated tax payments 2022 and put them on your calendar so that you can, backtrack and start to have things, ready and you can start to bug your accounting person to make sure that you're on time with that. So that's a great idea. And then the second thing that you should do is to, I love this advice from Chip as we've been talking a lot about accounting professionals and financial
Mm,
professionals, is to make sure that all of your professionals share your philosophy. It's kind of like
yes.
when you invest. Some of us are, greater risk takers, others are more moderate, and some are super conservative. So understand your own personal level of risk and what you're comfortable with, and make sure that whoever you are using as a professional shares that philosophy so that, because if you're a really conservative person and you're dealing with someone that is, more of a high risk,
Right.
you're going to have tension and you want to make sure that because I mean, especially when it comes to taxes, realize that some things can get challenged. And if you're somebody that's like, I never want to be challenged, no triggers whatsoever.
Right. No
Well,
surprises.
like, get me all the savings that you can. Y
Yeah.
I need an offshore account, tell me how to get it. So, style and make sure that your professional matches your style.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I love my accountant is very calm and very calming. So, every time I meet with her, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you."
Yeah. Yeah. And here's something that is definitely COVID related. Um, Many small businesses were able to take advantage of SBA loan programs.
Right.
Not the grants, obviously, but the loan programs, and those loan programs all got deferred, and then they got deferred
Yeah.
again, and I think they got deferred a third time.
Last
If
week,
you have
yeah.
SBA loan, make sure that you've paid attention to emails and communications and that you've set yourself up into the portal and that you kind of review your loan documents again,
Mhm.
because there are stipulations in that loan that you need to follow, but also make sure to set yourself up in a payment system. I think it's pay.gov because
Yeah.
you can absolutely pay on your loan even though it is in deferment mode. But the key is to make sure that you know where and how to pay and that you know the date. Check that date because
Mm.
it's easy to lose track of that because they keep moving it out, which is great for small businesses. I think that's fantastic. But you don't want to lose track of your date that you absolutely have to start making those payments. So add this in to your spring cleaning, grab that date and put it on your calendar and make sure that you know how to keep track of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's smart too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there's a ton of ways to stay organized and, as you go throughout the year, it's funny, so I'm still in QuickBooks, and I have to laugh at myself sometimes because it's like, Michelle, you went online partly because, well, you wanted to keep things off your computer per se because I've tried to do that as a rule because then when your computer tanks, you're not going, "Ah!" You're just going,
Yeah.
"Ugh, alright." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be so much more organized, Karen. I'm gonna have it on the app on my phone, and then, after I do my miles, I'm just gonna do approve my transactions, and I'll be so far ahead." So, okay, listeners, yeah, that's possible, so you just have to, like, do it.
I so my method, just my own personal method, is that I have folders in my secure file server. I use Ignite, and I have for years because I think that they're very security conscious. They've kept me
Yeah,
safe. And I have folders there where I store everything. I have those copies in other places, but I can quickly go to Ignite and share a
yeah,
folder
yeah,
with whoever needs it.
yeah,
So and so that means that I have a central location for all of my documents. I will say that if you are using any type of, electronic system for storing documents, and a lot of our documents come electronically these days. Most
yeah,
of us get, you know, electronic 1099s, and our forms come, and mortgage documents, and all of those things are usually electronic. Make sure that you put them somewhere and then back them up.
oh, yes, 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 yes.
Routinely. Do backups routinely on your data so that if anything happens, we know the best of systems can crash, things can happen. You want to make sure that you have backup copies of everything that you need. And you
Yeah,
want to make sure that you have that for a very long time.
yeah,
Because if you were to ever get audited and needed to produce receipts or records, you want to have access to those, even if you are, change computers 5 times over. So definitely that's something that you should add to your I'm kind of a weekly backup type of person, but I would say no less than monthly. Just,
yeah.
make it part of your routine and set up some kind of an automated system where it happens, or put it on your calendar if you're going to do it manually. Just plot it out for the rest of the year that you add this task and that you're backing up your data.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's the most important of all for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And, and with that, clearly with some of us, that's a subscription payment, but, as we touched on earlier, sometimes you're paying for subscriptions for things and you may full on forget, right?
Yeah.
And you may think, "Oh, wait, why am I
Yeah.
paying for this? Oh no, what?"
Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah, we've all been there.
I One of my spooky kind of moments is sometimes it's with streaming stuff, but it's that has happened to me with something else that I forgot to capture. So there are
Yeah,
apps that help you track
mhm,
subscriptions. There are apps like Truebill, where they not only find your subscription, but see if they can save you money on it.
yeah,
If you use a system like Mint, which is by QuickBooks, they have a system that tracks subscriptions. Bobby is one that I don't think it pulls the data in, but you put the data in, and they have made it fast and easy because they have a long list of things. So, find a centralized way to capture all of your, even if it's a spreadsheet or a notebook where you just write
mhm,
stuff down, and then again, put that on your calendar so that as your needs change, maybe you signed up for coverage book for a specific client, and now you no longer have a client and you're really
right,
not using it. You need to have a quick, fast way to go look at things that you're paying for routinely, whether it's
mhm,
monthly, quarterly, or twice a year or annually, and make sure that those subscriptions are still needed.
right,
I'm a
mhm,
huge fan of twice a year, just doing a subscription audit and getting rid of stuff that I'm really not using, because, our needs change. Sometimes we find another
mm,
tool that takes the place of 2 other tools, or there's something that we were using as a tool and trying it out, and you know what? Paper works better for us. So, don't lose track of that because it's money out of your pocket.
right, right. No, absolutely. And, you know, it's something as fundamental as your cell phone plan. Um, think about it because when I first started using my phone for business, and let's face it, when I was out and about more and going places where, Wi-Fi was slim, for me, it's the Girl Scout in me, be prepared. I have all the data, but now I'm thinking, well, Is my data plan too bloated because I work from
Yeah.
home, so my phone can be using my home internet that I'm also paying for, so how much are you traveling? Do you use your phone as a hotspot or do you have a separate hotspot? And how much is that getting used? So, just take a look, and because now everything's getting tiered, and I'm still on this old school Verizon thing, and I'm still kind of like, should I let that go? The
Yeah.
minute you let that go, you might need it. I'm like, "Nope, nope, nope, be brutal." Same thing as if it's a 10-year-old sweater you haven't worn, be brutal.
Yeah.
That's what
I,
spring cleaning's all about.
I will also say it's funny how, guilty of this as well. Sometimes you hoard, your pricing tier because this is such a thing in the digital age, right? You sign up
Yeah,
for something and you pay $5 a month,
yeah,
and you have it for 22 years while everybody else has gone up to $99 a month. And
yeah,
$5 a month doesn't seem like a whole lot, but if you're doing $5 a month and you've got, 20 of those,
yeah,
but you're only using one, it
yeah,
might be time to, clear the clutter and let go of your, longtime customer fee.
yeah,
I've done that on a couple of things, and then 3 or 4 years later, I've had to go back and, yeah, I've had to pay new prices, but I always make sure that when it comes to business tools, that I am accounting for those expenses in my client,
right.
because I'm not
Yes,
using, I have no need, Karen Swim, of a media monitoring database.
right,
I don't care about that. If I were not doing PR, I could
right,
care less about that.
right,
So this definitely is an expense of doing, it's a cost of doing business.
yeah,
So I make sure that my cost of doing business is accurate. Again, this is why it's good to do those audits to make sure that
right,
you're accounting for your cost of business in what you charge, and you're making sure that your business is profitable because you're looking at these kinds of things. And so, you know, I'm guilty. I've been guilty of it. And so I would encourage you, don't fear letting go. I mean, I have locked in some rates that I'm like, well, I locked in when it was, 4 times less money, and you just do not want to let it go.
I know.
You're like, I can't let it go. It's just too good. But you're not
Yeah,
using it. Let it go.
it's so true, it's so true. I'm like, "But I
Yeah,
liked it."
yeah. I really liked it.
Oh
20
gosh.
years.
I know, it's so true, it's so true. We get so funny about some things, but, one other important thing we don't want you to forget is if you have business insurance,
Yeah,
an E&O, any kind of insurance that, review that, make sure it's still covering the type of work that you do, make sure you're protected, and yeah, check around for rates because sometimes, now not saying that the cheapest option is always best, you always need to weigh that against, okay, well, if I do need to make a claim, how is it doing business with this company, blah, 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 blah. So you need to do your due diligence, but factor that into your financial spring cleaning because these are all the components of the engine that make your business run and also help support you. If you just take some time and streamline some of these things, even just the mental weight of, oh, I have to do that. If you can remove some of that from your shoulders, you'll be so much happier.
yeah, and here's our final financial spring cleaning tip. Go through and make sure that you have a reliable, consistent system for
Yes.
checking your financial accounts.
Yeah.
Fraud is rampant, people, and I've had some colleagues that recently experienced it. I had an experience, and because I got on top of it immediately, I didn't have a loss from it, but you wanna make sure that you know
Yeah.
what credit card charges are coming through, what's happening with your bank account. You wanna make sure that deposits really land.
Yeah.
I know, like, some of your clients may use electronic systems to pay you, and sometimes you get a remittance advice. Make sure that you track those remittances through and that they ended up as deposits in your account, because it's easy to get that advice and think, okay, great, this was paid.
Right.
No, that's notice that it's going to be paid, but make sure that on the other end that it actually does end up in your bank. So,
Yeah.
be very meticulous about these things and, protect your finances because you've worked too hard to, have things kind of slip through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah. I get frustrated with my bank when I'll go to subscribe to something and, sometimes it could be, "Oh, I didn't realize they were based in the Netherlands," and it'll
Yeah.
reject it as fraud, and then so I have to
Yeah.
call them and say, "Look, that $10.96 is okay, okay?"
Yeah.
Or
You want the bank that's going to look out for you
yeah,
too. Well,
yeah,
if your
I
business
appreciate
bank
it.
failed you or
Yeah,
you don't feel like the security is hardened enough, then you might wanna look at other options. It's kind of a pain to change banks, but, it may be worth it if you're not happy with the service levels that you're receiving.
yeah. It's definitely worth it just to make sure you're as protected as possible. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we've
What
given you a lot. I hope that
you
this was
have.
helpful for all of you. We will do a transcript of this, and so that you'll have the transcript to look back over, and we'll put some resources in the show notes for you.
Yeah,
And we hope that you pass this information along and that it inspires you to do a little dusting and polishing and purging of anything that doesn't serve you because again we're all about you having the best business
exactly.
that
E
you possibly can.
exactly. So what I like to do is treat myself, get up out of my office, treat myself to my favorite coffee shop beverage to at least amuse myself through these tasks. So yeah, make it, make it a little special moment for you if you have to kind of psych yourself up for it. And, but the more you make these regular practices, it'll just be like, another thing. So we do hope you found some value in this. We hope we've inspired you to do it. I think we've inspired ourselves a little bit too. So until next time, we thank you for joining us on That's Solo Life.